Absolutely useless. The words echoed through our upscale suburban home as my mother threw my college acceptance letter in my face. NYU? For finance? What a waste of money. I stood in our pristine kitchen, watching the letter flutter to the marble floor, my dreams of studying finance scattered like confetti at my feet. At 18, I had thought getting into one of the best business schools in the country would finally make my parents proud. I was wrong. Emma. My father's cold voice cut through the air. We've discussed this. You're going to work at the restaurant like your sister Catherine. College is an unnecessary expense for someone like you. Someone like me. Those words had defined my entire existence in the Morrison family. Catherine, my older sister, was the golden child, the one who had dutifully followed our parents' path into the family's chain of high-end restaurants. And me. I was the dreamer who dared to want something different. But I got a partial scholarship, I protested, picking up the crumpled letter. I've been saving from my part-time job. I can make this work. My mother laughed, that sharp, dismissive sound I'd grown to hate. Your little bookkeeping job at that tiny bank? Please. Catherine made more in tips last month than you make in a year. What they didn't know was that my little bookkeeping job at First Metro Bank had taught me more about finance than they could imagine. While they saw me filing papers and answering phones, I was absorbing everything about banking, investments, and the power of money. I'm going, I said quietly, but firmly, whether you support me or not. My father's face turned that dangerous shade of red I knew too well. If you walk out that door, don't expect any help from us. Ever. Richard, my mother touched his arm, her voice suddenly honey-sweet and poisonous. Maybe we're approaching this wrong. Emma, darling, think about it. Catherine is already managing 2 restaurants. In a few years, she could be running the whole chain. But you, what can you do with a finance degree? I looked at them both. Really looked at them. My mother in her designer clothes, my father with his expensive watch. Both of them so sure they knew what was best for everyone. They'd built their restaurant empire from nothing true, but they'd stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped seeing possibilities beyond their own narrow view of success. I can build something of my own, I answered. The slap came so fast, I didn't see it coming. My mother's hand left a stinging impression on my cheek. Ungrateful child, after everything we've given you. Given me? I touched my burning face. What exactly have you given me except constant criticism and comparisons to Catherine? G-E-T-L-U-T. My mother screamed, her perfectly maintained facade cracking completely. If you're so sure you can make it on your own, then go. Don't come crawling back when you fail. My father stood silent, his face stone. Behind him, I saw Catherine in the doorway, watching with a mixture of shock and smug satisfaction. I walked upstairs to my room, pulled out the bag I'd packed weeks ago, just in case this day came, and grabbed the small lockbox where I had been storing my savings. 4 years of working every spare hour, saving every penny, preparing for this moment. When I came back downstairs, my mother was crying dramatically while my father comforted her. Catherine still stood in the doorway, now openly smirking. You'll regret this, she said softly as I passed. Nobody makes it without family backing them up. I paused at the front door, looking back at my so-called family one last time. You're wrong, and someday I'll prove it. That night, I checked into a small hotel near the bank where I worked. My manager, Mr. Harrison, had always seen something in me that my family missed. When I told him what happened, he didn't hesitate. The bank has a program, he said, for promising employees who want to further their education. Full tuition reimbursement in exchange for working here during school and 2 years after graduation. Are you interested? Was I interested? It was better than anything I had hoped for. Yes, I said firmly. I'm very interested. What my family didn't know, what they had never bothered to learn, was that I had already been taking online finance courses through the bank's training program. I had certifications in investment banking, risk management, and financial analysis. My little bookkeeping job had given me access to a world of knowledge they couldn't imagine. The next 4 years passed in a blur of classes, work, and relentless self-improvement. While Catherine posted photos of herself at restaurant openings and industry parties, I was learning how banks really worked, how money moved, how power was built. I graduated from NYU summa cum laude, with job offers from top investment firms. But I stayed at First Metro Bank, working my way up from department to department. I learned everything about bank operations, from loans to acquisitions. 10 years after my parents threw me out, I founded my own investment company, Phoenix Financial. We specialized in buying struggling banks, restructuring them, and turning them into profitable powerhouses. My family's name and their precious restaurants meant nothing in the world I now inhabited. 5 years after that, an opportunity arose that I couldn't resist. First Commonwealth Bank, my parents' primary lender, was struggling. Their stock was down, their leadership was weak, and they were ripe for takeover. I sat in my corner office, looking at the acquisition proposal on my desk. My parents had no idea that their loyal family bank was about to become mine. They had no idea that their daughter, the one they'd thrown away as useless, now controlled billions in assets. They would find out soon enough. According to the reports, the Morrison Restaurant Group had several large loans coming due. Loans they were struggling to pay thanks to Catherine's mismanagement and their own refusal to modernize. Soon, they would come begging for extensions, for better terms, for mercy from a bank they thought they knew. Instead, they would find me. I picked up the phone and dialed my chief operating officer. Janet, execute Project Homecoming. It's time to buy First Commonwealth Bank. The wheel had turned full circle. The useless daughter they'd thrown away was about to become their bank's owner. And unlike them, I understood exactly how to use that power. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out that crumpled NYU acceptance letter, the one I'd retrieved from the floor 15 years ago. I'd kept it as a reminder of where I started. Now it would serve as a reminder of how far I'd come. And my family? They were about to learn that sometimes the people you dismiss as useless turn out to be the most powerful of all. The takeover of First Commonwealth Bank went exactly as planned. The press announcement hit the morning news. Phoenix Financial acquires First Commonwealth in $2.8 billion deal. My parents wouldn't understand the significance yet. They never read the financial news. But they would soon enough. I sat in my new office at First Commonwealth's headquarters, reviewing their loan portfolio. The Morrison Restaurant Group's files lay open on my desk. 6 restaurants struggling with debt, outdated business models, and declining profits. My sister Catherine's signature was on most of the recent documents, each one showing increasingly desperate attempts to secure more funding. Ms. Williams? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Catherine Morrison is here for her 2 p.m. meeting about the loan extensions. I smiled, remembering my sister's last words to me 15 years ago. Send her in. Catherine strutted in, designer heels clicking on the marble floor. She hadn't changed much, still perfectly groomed, still radiating that air of entitled confidence. She stopped short when she saw me, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. "Emma?" she whispered, then quickly recovered. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, Catherine." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss." If this is some kind of joke, she remained standing, clutching her expensive handbag like a shield. "No joke." I opened the Morrison Group's file. "I see you're here to discuss extending the loans on restaurants 3 through 6. They're significantly underwater, aren't they?" The color drained from her face. You work here?" "Actually," I smiled, "I own the bank. Phoenix Financial completed the acquisition this morning. Didn't you read the news?" She sank into the chair, her legs seemingly giving out. "That's impossible. You're nothing. You ran away." "I didn't run away, Catherine. I built something. Something much bigger than a chain of overpriced restaurants." I pulled out the latest financial reports. "Speaking of which, let's discuss these numbers. They're quite concerning." "These meetings are supposed to be with Mr. Anderson," she protested weakly. "Mr. Anderson retired this morning. All major loan decisions now go through me." I studied my sister's face as the reality of her situation sank in. "You're 3 months behind on payments for 4 locations. Your revenue is down 40% year over year. And," I pulled out another document, "you've been hiding losses from our loan officers." "That's fraud, Catherine." She straightened in her chair, trying to summon her old arrogance. "You wouldn't dare call in our loans. We're family." "Family?" I laughed softly. "Isn't that what you said the night I left? Nobody makes it without family backing them up." "Well, I did make it. And now your family's financial future depends on my decisions." "I'll tell Mom and Dad," she threatened. "They won't stand for this." "Please do." I handed her a business card. "In fact, I'd like all of you to come to a meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. We need to discuss the future of the Morrison Restaurant Group." Catherine stood up, shaking with rage. "You planned this. All these years, you were just waiting for revenge." "No, Catherine. I built an empire while you were coasting on our parents' success. The fact that I now control your loans? That's just poetic justice." After she stormed out, I called my assistant. "Janet, when my parents arrive tomorrow, have security bring them directly to the boardroom. I think it's time for a proper family reunion." That evening, my phone exploded with messages. Catherine had clearly run straight to our parents. "Mom, how dare you? After everything we did for you." "Dad, this is unacceptable. We'll take our business elsewhere." "Catherine, you'll regret this. Nobody treats us this way." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I reviewed the restructuring plan I'd prepared for their restaurants. They had 2 choices: accept my terms and save their business, or refuse and lose everything. The next morning, I dressed carefully in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than 3 months of Catherine's salary. The boardroom windows offer a sweeping view of the city, my city now, in many ways. At exactly 9 a.m., the doors opened. My parents walked in, followed by Catherine. They stopped short when they saw me standing at the head of the table. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Please, sit down." "Emma?" My father's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "What is the meaning of this?" "This," I gestured to the documents laid out before each place, "is a meeting to discuss the future of your company. Your very troubled company." "We'll take our business to another bank," my mother snapped. "With your credit history? Your fraudulent reporting?" I picked up a file. "No bank in the city will touch you. especially after I filed these discrepancy reports with the regulatory board. Catherine went pale. She knew exactly what those reports contained. Every fake number, every hidden loss, every lie she told to keep the loans flowing. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Try me." I sat down, opened the main proposal. "However, I'm prepared to offer you a deal. One that will save your restaurants and your reputation." My father's face had turned that dangerous shade of red again. "You think you can blackmail us? Your own family?" "Blackmail?" I raised an eyebrow. "No, I'm offering you a business solution. The same kind I've offered to dozens of other failing companies. The fact that you're my family doesn't change the numbers." I pushed copies of the proposal across the table. Phoenix Financial will assume control of 51% of the Morrison Restaurant Group. We'll inject new capital, modernize your operations, and restructure your debt. In return, you'll step down from day-to-day management. Step down. My mother's voice rose to a shriek. "This is our company." "Not anymore," I replied calmly. "Right now. It's a failing company drowning in debt. I'm offering you a chance to save what's left." Catherine was frantically flipping through the proposal. This would make you our boss." "Yes," I agreed. "Ironic, isn't it? The useless daughter you kicked out now controls your financial future." My father stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "You ungrateful little." "Careful," I cut him off. "Remember where you are. Remember who owns this building, this bank, and soon, your restaurants." He froze, finally seeing me clearly. Not as his disappointing younger daughter, but as the powerful executive I'd become. "Why?" my mother asked, tears streaming down her face. "Why do this to us?" I stood up slowly, placed my hands on the table. "Because 15 years ago, you threw me away like I was nothing. You were so sure I would fail without your support. Instead, I built something greater than anything you could imagine." I walked to the window, looked out at the city. "Your choice is simple. Accept my offer and save your legacy, or refuse and lose everything. You have until the end of business today to decide." "You can't do this," Catherine protested weakly. I turned back to them, smiled coldly. "I already have. The papers are drawn up. The board is waiting for your response. The only question is whether you're smart enough to take the deal." As they sat there, staring at the documents that would change everything, I thought about that night 15 years ago, about the daughter they'd thrown away as useless, about how power shifts when you least expect it. "One more thing," I added as I walked to the door. "When you make your decision, remember this. I learned everything I know about business by watching you. The only difference is, I learned from your mistakes instead of repeating them." I left them there, surrounded by papers that proved just how far their useless daughter had come. The wheel had turned full circle, and now they had to choose: accept my authority or lose everything they built. Either way, I had already won. They signed the papers at 4:59 p.m. I watched from my office as my father's hand trembled slightly, signing away control of the empire he built. My mother dabbed at her eyes with an expensive handkerchief while Catherine stared blankly at the wall, her perfect world completely shattered. "Congratulations," my lawyer said smoothly, gathering the documents. "Phoenix Financial is now the majority owner of the Morrison Restaurant Group." "What happens now?" my father asked, his voice hollow. I stood up from behind my desk. "Now we save your company, whether you like it or not." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of changes. I brought in my own management team to audit every aspect of the restaurant chain. The results were worse than even I had expected. They've been operating on an outdated business model for years, Janet reported, spreading spreadsheets across my desk. No online presence, no modern marketing, no adaptation to changing customer preferences. It's like they're stuck in 1995. Catherine's been hiding the real numbers, my CFO added. They're not just underwater, they're drowning. Without our intervention, they would have collapsed within 6 months. I nodded, unsurprised. My sister had always been better at appearances than actual management. Start the restructuring. Full modernization, complete menu overhaul, new marketing strategy, and schedule a full board meeting for next week. The board meeting was the first time I'd seen my family since they signed the papers. They sat at the far end of the table, looking small and defeated. Catherine had lost her designer polish. There were shadows under her eyes, and her clothes looked rumpled. The Morrison Restaurant Group is fundamentally sound, I began, standing at the head of the table. The brand has value, the locations are prime, and there's a loyal customer base. The problem isn't the business, it's how it's been run. I clicked through slides showing the changes we planned. Modern point-of-sale systems, updated menus focusing on local ingredients and current food trends, a robust online ordering platform, and a complete marketing overhaul. This isn't what our customers want, my father interrupted. They come to us for traditional. Your customers are leaving. I cut him off. Sales have dropped 40% in 3 years. The only thing keeping you afloat was Catherine's creative accounting, and that stops now. Catherine flinched. I was trying to save us. You were hiding the truth. I corrected her, just like you've all been doing for years. Well, that ends today. I laid out the new management structure. My team would handle operations, finance, and marketing. My family would retain ceremonial positions, the face of the brand, but with no real power. You're destroying everything we built, my mother whispered. No, I replied calmly. I'm saving it. You just can't see that yet. The changes weren't easy. My parents fought every modernization attempt. Catherine sulked in her new role as brand ambassador, stripped of any real authority. But slowly, inevitably, the numbers began to turn around. 3 months after the takeover, sales increased for the first time in years. 6 months in, we opened our first new location, a modern concept restaurant that blended the Morrison tradition with contemporary dining trends. It was an immediate success. 1 year to the day after I took control, I called another family meeting, this time in the flagship restaurant, after hours. The numbers speak for themselves, I said, handing out the latest reports. Revenue is up 60%. Customer satisfaction has increased by 45%. The Morrison Restaurant Group is not just surviving, it's thriving. My father studied the reports with grudging admiration. Even he couldn't deny the turnaround. Why? Catherine asked suddenly. Why save us at all? You could have let us fail, after how we treated you. I walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. Because success isn't about revenge. It's about proving something to yourself, not others. We were wrong, my mother said quietly. It was the first time I'd ever heard her admit a mistake. About you, about everything. I turned back to them. Yes, you were. But that's not why I did this. Then why? My father asked. Because 15 years ago, you threw away a daughter you thought was useless. Instead of destroying me, it made me stronger. I built something bigger than you could imagine. And now, I smiled slightly. Now I'm teaching you how to build something too. Catherine stood up, straightened her shoulders. Teach me. At our surprised looks, she continued. I mean it. Everything I thought I knew about business was wrong. I want to learn. Really learn, not just pretend. I studied my sister, seeing something new in her eyes, humility, and maybe a spark of real ambition. Okay, I said finally. Be in my office tomorrow at 8 a.m. We'll start with basic financial analysis, real numbers this time, not creative accounting. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. As the business transformed, so did my family. Catherine threw herself into learning, showing a genuine talent for marketing when she wasn't trying to fake success. My father, freed from day-to-day management, became a valuable brand ambassador, telling the story of our restaurant's evolution. Even my mother found a role, using her social connections to build partnerships with local suppliers and charities. 1 year and 6 months after the takeover, we sat in my office for a different kind of meeting. The board has reviewed your performance, I told them. Based on the results, we're prepared to adjust the management structure. You're giving us back control? My father asked hopefully. No, I smiled. But I am offering you real positions in the company, based on merit, not family ties. Catherine, you've shown remarkable growth in marketing. Dad, your community outreach program has been incredibly successful. Mom, your supplier relations program has cut our costs by 15%. I handed them each a folder. These are your new contracts. Real positions, real responsibilities, real accountability. Your choice if you want to accept them. They opened the folders silently. Catherine's eyes widened at her new title, Vice President of Brand Development. Why now? She asked. Because you've earned it, I replied simply. Not because you're family, but because you've proven you can add value to this company. That's something I had to learn the hard way. My father looked up from his contract. We were so wrong about you, about everything. Yes, I agreed. But being wrong isn't the end. It's what you learn from it that matters. I stood up, walked to my window, the same window where I'd stood the day I took control of their company. 15 years ago, you kicked out a daughter you thought was useless. Today, that daughter is offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than yourselves. The question is, are you ready to learn? They signed the contracts without hesitation. Not out of desperation this time, but with a new understanding of what it means to earn success. The useless daughter they'd thrown away had become not just their savior, but their teacher. And maybe that was the greatest revenge of all. Not destroying them, but showing them a better way to build something lasting. The family that had once cast me out now looked to me for leadership. The sister who had mocked my ambitions now learned at my side. The parents who had dismissed my dreams now saw them become reality. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about being strong enough to show them how to be right.
Making only $750 a month is like a college student's allowance. Even students working at bars earn more. Having a low-income wife is embarrassing. Maybe you should get a divorce so our son can find a better wife. After all, he's a great catch. My mother-in-law keeps making these rude comments after seeing a pay stub, but it's not even mine. My name is Amanda, and I'm a 32-year-old nurse. I've been married to John for 5 years. We met in college, started dating, and eventually got married. We first met at a party when he was a medical student and I was studying to be a nurse. John hasn't passed the medical licensing exam. He failed twice and took 3 years off. Now he's working part-time and studying hard for the exam. I'm working full-time as a nurse, so I make most of the money for us. John isn't into bragging about money or posting pictures of fancy cars on social media. He's serious about his work, reading stories about people who've lost loved ones to illness, keeping up with the number of people affected by infectious diseases, and studying Japan's healthcare system. I respect him even though he's not a doctor yet. He genuinely wants to help people, so I didn't leave him despite his lack of income and being in his 30s. He hasn't told his parents that he isn't a doctor yet. Sorry, my mom is too nosy, he says. It's okay. I support you, so you don't have to worry about your parents. Live your life the way you want. This is just temporary. That's why his situation remained a secret. No one knew because he worked as a night security guard at the hospital where I worked. This way, he was technically employed there. He had enough knowledge and information from my stories to sound like a doctor. So when his parents, who rarely saw us, asked about him, I said yes, patients really like him. I believe that while cruel lies can hurt people, kind lies can sometimes save them. Telling a patient you have 3 months left and there's no chance of recovery is like starting a countdown. It's better to say, you look good today and you ate a lot. That's how people are. On the other hand, my mother-in-law is very different from my serious and honest husband. She has a harsh personality and is a typical overbearing mother-in-law. She looks down on me for being just a nurse married to her son, the doctor. There must have been so many better options, like a beautiful dermatologist. I always apologize and bow my head when she says things like that. I wholeheartedly support my husband in his pursuit of becoming a doctor, but right now, he's just a high school graduate with a lot of medical knowledge working part-time. He's not even a medical intern yet. However, my husband is genuinely grateful, often saying, "Thank you for everything always." So I silently support him. I'm also very busy with my work. Our combined income is barely enough to make ends meet, but it couldn't be helped. I didn't care much about money because I admired Florence Nightingale and wanted to help people. Currently, I'm a nurse in internal medicine, which has the heaviest workload. Wanting more money doesn't even cross my mind. As long as we can live, eat, and stay healthy, that's enough. Isn't that what life is really about? Even though I'm the one supporting my husband's living expenses and tuition, my mother-in-law tells everyone in the neighborhood, my son is a doctor and earns well. If he were a serious doctor, he wouldn't want his mother bragging about his income, whether good or bad. But my mother-in-law doesn't care and only talks about money, money, money. As her son, he has no choice but to silently endure it. She doesn't know that he's actually working as a security guard in uniform at the hospital instead of walking around in a white coat as she brags about. Even if he were walking around in a white coat, it's not something to boast and gossip about. I understand her pride, but she should hold back. I was worried that my husband's mental state might suffer and he might fail the medical licensing exam because he's barely hanging on. If he ends up spending his entire life as a security guard after trying so hard, it would be heartbreaking. His personality is perfect for being a doctor. His only weakness is his kindness. That's why my mother-in-law makes up stories and says things like, "My son makes $373,000 a year." For him, knowing that's false just adds more pressure. I once gently expressed my concern to her. I think it would be better for the patients if he didn't talk so much about his job because it might cause problems. After all, if you think about it from the opposite perspective, would you want to go to a doctor whose mother is constantly boasting about him when you're sick? But my mother-in-law doesn't care. Be quiet, you're just a nurse. You should feel lucky to marry a doctor. It's like winning a $3 million lottery. Money can't buy respect. You're just a nursing school graduate. She says mean things. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me marry John. I respect him as a doctor and as a person, so please leave him alone. You're so annoying. We can make him divorce you and marry someone else. It would be sad if our future grandchild gets your low IQ. She's being really mean. But I stayed quiet. Compared to saving lives or feeling like I'm doing important work, my mother-in-law's mean words didn't bother me much. I didn't take her seriously, but one day she showed up at our house uninvited. Our house is a 30-minute train ride from theirs, so we don't see them often. I'm busy with work, so I'm not around them much. That's why she didn't know the truth until now. Wow, this house is small. Why does my son, who I'm so proud of, have to live in such a poor-looking place? She said loudly. She looked at the row of medical books and said, "Well, he is my son," and took a picture with her phone. But most of the books were for the national medical exam, so I felt nervous. Since this year's books were there, it might show he's still studying. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was racing. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. We're both busy with work, so we haven't had time to find a bigger place, especially recently. I hinted for her to leave. But then she started looking around our house. What's with these strange dishes? If you're a doctor, you should buy fancy ones. Yes, I'm sorry. They're from a cheap store. What? Cheap store. I'm getting rid of them. No, we didn't have much money because we were spending it on my husband's textbooks and tuition. So we saved money on things like plates that didn't affect our basic meals. As long as we could eat off them, it was okay. Right now, passing his exams was the most important thing. At that time, my husband happened to be working as a security guard at the hospital. It was a good thing he wasn't home. I didn't want him to get upset, so I wanted to get my mother-in-law to leave while he was at work. But she kept going through our stuff. I'm going to get rid of these clothes that look like something a student would wear. If you're a doctor, you should wear expensive clothes. She threw away my husband's favorite clothes. And what's this? A cheap watch? If you're a doctor, get a fancy one, she said, tossing it aside, not realizing the usefulness of a smartwatch. Each thing she threw away was bought with the little money my husband earned. He would have rather been in the operating room treating patients than standing outside feeling humiliated. But he kept working hard for his dreams and the sweat he put into it. But she didn't stop. It's because he married a poor girl that you're living like this, even though he's a doctor. It's unbelievable. I thought we could go shopping together and maybe you could buy me a bag or something. Her words were really mean. I had to tell her that what she expected from my husband, whether he's a student or not, was different from how we lived. I was a doctor too. I wasn't just after his money. Mother-in-law, he's not that extravagant. We like our life the way it is, I said calmly. But she wouldn't listen. You're so frustrating. Do you know how hard he worked to get into medical school? My mother-in-law yelled, getting angrier. She kept searching my house, not stopping at the kitchen but going through every closet, throwing away anything she thought was cheap. Then she started looking through our bills and paperwork. That's when she found the pay stubs. They showed $750.25. Even though my husband's name was on them, she either didn't notice or couldn't read it. She shouted, $750. What do you mean $750? That's not my son's daily wage. Even anesthesiologists make $750 a day, and you're the wife of a doctor making only $750? Are you not working hard enough, or what? She started to lose control. That's why you're so poor. You're just using my son for money. You're barely working as a nurse and tricking a doctor. You're only doing part-time nursing because it sounds good. $750 is nothing, so quit already. That money was earned by him when other doctors passed him by, working hard between his study hours for a very low daily wage. It meant a lot to us. But my mother-in-law wouldn't stop being crazy, and then the worst happened. You're a poor wife who brings bad luck. Divorce her quickly. Just then, my husband came home from his part-time job. He looked shocked to see his clothes and watch thrown away. He started picking them up silently. But my mother-in-law said, John, I don't want to be mean, but please divorce her. Why did you, with your high education and income, choose such a pathetic woman? I'm so sad, and she only earned $750. But my husband didn't say anything. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. My mother-in-law laughed and said, I'll bring you the divorce papers. Leave this dusty room and this woman who smells like disinfectant and find a better wife. You're a doctor. You should remarry. Then my husband stood up slowly and said, Mom, I haven't told you this, but I'm not a doctor yet. What? I'm sorry for not telling you earlier, but I haven't passed the national exam yet. And about that $750. My mother-in-law was so shocked that she looked at me for help. I don't get it. This $750 paycheck is yours, isn't it? I realized there was no point in hiding it anymore, so I said, No, it's not mine. My husband added, That's my salary from my part-time job. That can't be. You're lying, aren't you? I'm not lying. It's true. I'm not a doctor yet. I failed the national exam twice. My mother-in-law was shocked to hear that her son wasn't a doctor yet. She started acting strangely and slipped on some newspapers she had scattered earlier while going through our house. She fell to the floor and cried out for help. Thankfully, she managed to avoid hitting her head, but her right arm, which she used the most, broke with a loud snap. It was definitely fractured. My husband and I quickly helped her and took her to the hospital, where we brought her to the orthopedic department. But my husband said, "Mom, I'm sorry, but please don't come to our house anymore, and I don't want you to consider me your son anymore." My mother-in-law was trembling from shock, but my husband continued, "I knew you were proud of me, but I couldn't keep lying. But when you insulted the money I worked hard for, that was too much. But I never thought you weren't a doctor. It doesn't matter if I'm a doctor or not. Do you think I'm studying just to earn $750 a day? I'm an adult, and it seems like we have different values, so let's end our relationship." It seemed like my husband had truly decided to cut ties with his mother. She, who had found purpose in boasting about her son, seemed completely heartbroken. Nowadays, she stays at home, too embarrassed to face her neighbors. That same year, my husband passed the medical licensing exam. Despite being a bit older, he started working as a resident physician and did exceptionally well, always showing kindness, like offering tea to the security guards. Our days became peaceful and happy. If my mother-in-law had just waited a few more months, her dream would have come true, and she could have seen him in his white coat. It's really a pity, but she brought it upon herself. My dad suddenly got very sick and had to go to the hospital. I can't go on our honeymoon because I need to be with him. So my husband says I should go alone. I was really excited about our honeymoon, but now it's not happening. My husband thinks I should still go by myself. But who goes on a honeymoon alone? Then something unexpected happened. My father-in-law, who was supposed to be in the hospital, appeared in front of me. "Why are you here, father-in-law?" "My name is Sarah. I've been with Mark for 5 years, and he finally asked me to marry him this summer." Looking back, those 5 years felt like a long time. We started visiting Mark's parents' house about a year into our relationship, and he met my parents who live far away too. But he always said, "Let's wait until work is more settled," without making a definite plan to get married. Lately, he even joked, "Why change anything?" This made me worried. "Mark, I'm turning 30 soon. If you're not going to be honest with me, we might need to end things." After I said that, Mark finally asked me to marry him. We were close to each other's families and had already talked about everything, from our wedding plans to our honeymoon destination. All that was left was to make those plans happen. We decided to have a small wedding with just our closest friends and family. The only thing left was our honeymoon. Mark planned to spend the day at his parents' house to spend time with them. I had dinner with my parents, who came from out of town, and then went home alone. I packed our bags for the honeymoon and sent Mark a text before bed. "Mark, you did great today. I'm all set for our honeymoon tomorrow. I'm really excited about going to Italy." But I didn't hear back from Mark. I figured he must have been really tired from the wedding and fell asleep. I hoped he wouldn't oversleep for our flight the next day. Feeling a bit worried, I eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I got a call from Mark. "Sarah, something really bad happened," Mark said quickly as soon as I answered the phone. "My dad collapsed and he's in the hospital. You'll have to go on our honeymoon alone today." "What? What do you mean?" I was shocked. "But your dad seemed fine at our wedding yesterday, didn't he?" "I'm just as surprised as you, Sarah. I need to stay with him, but you should still go on the honeymoon without me." "That's crazy. If your dad's sick, I can't just leave for our honeymoon. Who goes on a honeymoon alone anyway?" I asked which hospital his dad was in, but Mark wouldn't tell me. "If I told you, you want to come visit, right?" "Of course I would. Dad knows how much you've been looking forward to going to Italy. He insisted I should still let you go. Please respect his wishes. I won't be able to enjoy myself with everything that's happening. Will you come join me once he's feeling better?" "Definitely, I'll be there as soon as things calm down here." "Don't say as soon as things are settled. It might jinx it. Please, let me handle things here and go to Italy as planned. I'm almost at the hospital, so I won't be able to answer your calls. Talk to you later." "Well, wait, Mark," I tried to say, but he hung up before I could get a word in. I called back right away, but his phone was off. I didn't even know which hospital he was heading to, so I couldn't rush to be with my father-in-law. Feeling helpless, the doorbell rang, startling me. When I opened the door, I was shocked. "Father-in-law?" There he was, standing at the door, supposed to be in the hospital after collapsing. Are you okay? Your legs. They're working. I stammered, feeling like I was seeing a ghost. What do you mean? My father-in-law looked confused as I checked if he was really there. Are you feeling all right? Oh, I had a bit too much to drink at the wedding yesterday, but I'm fine now. Sober as a judge this morning, and I drove here just fine after dropping Mark off. After dropping Mark off? Yeah, you're going on your honeymoon, right? I dropped him off at the station, but then I realized I should have come to pick you up too. Let me take you to LaGuardia. I was really confused. My father-in-law, who was supposed to be in the hospital, dropped Mark off at the station. None of this made any sense. Then it hit me. My father-in-law mentioned LaGuardia, but we're supposed to fly from JFK to Italy, not LaGuardia Airport. You said you'd take me to LaGuardia, but our honeymoon is in Italy. Oh yes, that's what I thought too. I was surprised when Mark told me this morning that we changed our plans last minute and decided to go to Alaska instead. Alaska. The more I heard, the more confused I became. Mark said we're going to Alaska. Yeah, he did. He left a note in the car. My father-in-law showed me a post-it that Mark had left in the car. It had the name of an inn in Alaska and a flight from LaGuardia to Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport written on it. When I saw it, everything started to make sense. Can you take me to LaGuardia then? Of course. Traffic shouldn't be too bad. We'll probably get there around the same time as Mark's train. Thank you so much. On the way, I couldn't stop thinking about Mark's behavior. Whether my guess was right or not, I find out when I saw him at the airport. I thanked my father-in-law and went into the airport. Near the check-in counter for the Alaska flight, I saw Mark right away. He was with another woman, cozying up together and picking out drinks. My suspicions were confirmed. He had been cheating on me. Maybe it started while we were living together. His reluctance to get married might have been because of her. And now, not only was he having an affair, but he was also going on a trip with her on the day of our honeymoon. I stood boldly in front of him. Mark, holding drinks and about to leave the store, saw me and looked shocked. Sarah, what are you doing here? Same question to you. Why are you, who should have been at the hospital with your dad, here? I just came to buy some stuff. Stuff? Did you really come all the way to LaGuardia just to buy drinks? Yeah, Dad wanted some specific airport water. That's funny you say that because I was just with your father. Huh? Your dad came to pick me up in his car. He seemed perfectly fine, which was a big surprise. Oh right, after we talked, he suddenly felt better. He's always been resilient. Mark was sticking to his story. Amidst my shock, I couldn't help but think, what excuse will he come up with next? So who's this woman? Where were you two planning to go? Well, oh right, she's the nurse who looked after Dad. We're going to check out a rehab center for him in Alaska. Your excuses are painful to hear. I was speechless and sighed in disbelief. Enough. Your lies are giving me a headache. It's not a lie, she's really my dad's. Mark's words were interrupted by a voice from behind. My what? I turned around and saw my father-in-law standing there. I thought you went home, I said. I had a feeling something wasn't right, Sarah, so I parked the car and followed you. Looks like I was right. Seeing his dad there, Mark knew his lies weren't going to work. He looked nervous. My father-in-law asked sternly, "Who is this woman?" Well. Before Mark could say anything, the woman spoke up. I'm Amy, Mark's girlfriend. Mark quickly covered her mouth. What are you saying? You need to be honest, Mark. You don't love your wife. Just divorce her already, she said boldly. What? No, just be quiet, Mark exclaimed. Why should I listen to you? You promised to leave your wife for me. That's why you chose me over her today, right? Amy accused. That's because you threatened me. You said, if you don't come to Alaska with me today, I'll tell everyone about us. Mark defended himself. I see, so you were having an affair with her? I said coldly. Amy glared at me and snapped back. It's not an affair. Mark and I are serious about each other. He never wanted to marry you. At that point, I didn't even want to argue anymore. Fine, do whatever you want. Leaving Mark and Amy behind, my father-in-law and I left the airport. It was 5 days later when Mark came back home. The doorbell rang, and I talked to him through the intercom. Sarah, can you open the door? I can't unlock it. Oh, I changed the locks. You changed them? Why would you do that without telling me? I don't want someone I don't know having a spare key to our home. Someone I don't know? Are you talking about me? Who else would I be talking about? I've got the divorce papers ready, so just sign them. Wait, let me in first. We can talk about this. I kept the door chain on and passed the divorce papers through the crack. There's nothing to talk about. Once you sign these papers, can you leave right away? Don't be so angry. I've decided to end things with Amy. Huh? What do you mean? She's awful. I only agreed to go to Alaska because she threatened to tell everyone about us. But the trip was terrible. She complained the whole time about the inn and the weather. I told her I won't divorce you. Please break up with me. I don't care if you break up with that girl or not. The only option for me is a divorce, even if you don't agree. Don't say that. Are you mad because we didn't go to Italy? It's too late now, but do you want to go? Are you serious? How can you even suggest that? I was wrong to think I could reason with you. A man who cancels our honeymoon to go on a trip with his mistress isn't reasonable. Sign the divorce papers now and also sign this. I handed him another document through the crack. What's this? He asked. It's a payment agreement for alimony and the cancellation fee for our honeymoon. I had a lawyer prepare it while you were away. I'm saying I don't want a divorce. You're the one who wants it, so why do I have to pay alimony? I want to try again. You can't ignore the consequences of cheating. Infidelity means alimony, and the decision to start over isn't yours, considering you cheated. What about this cancellation fee? We don't get a refund for canceling our trip last minute. Since you caused it, you should pay. I told you to go alone. Not going was your choice. How could I go alone on our honeymoon? And you lied about your dad being sick to cover up your affair. I couldn't go in that situation. I wanted to go to Italy with you, but Amy threatened me. You wouldn't want me to lose my job, would you? Amy threatened to expose you at work. Yeah, exactly. If she says she'll do something, she'll do it. It's all Amy's fault. Amy did give off a vibe of unpredictability. I mean, she even boldly declared herself as Mark's girlfriend directly to his wife. She must be quite bold. But strangely, I felt relieved. With someone like Amy in the picture, Mark's actions would eventually catch up with him, even without my interference. All I needed now was to get him to sign those divorce papers. Pretending to be concerned, I asked, "Hey, are you sure it's safe for you to be here?" What do you mean? You ended things with Amy, right? Isn't she angry? Of course she's angry, but I'm done with her. Well, maybe you're fine, but what about Amy? Knowing her, she might show up at your office and cause trouble. True, that would be a disaster. I need to go to the office and handle this. Sarah, could you pass me my company key card? This one. I pulled out Mark's company key card and showed it to him. Yeah, that's it. I quickly moved away from the door as Mark reached for the card through the gap. I'll give you the key card if you sign the divorce papers and the payment agreement first. But, have you made up your mind? You better decide quickly. Amy might get to your office before you. All right, Mark reluctantly signed the documents and passed them through the door gap. There, is that enough? Now give me the key card. I handed him the key card, and Mark hurried off to the office. I went to the courthouse to submit the divorce papers and gave the signed payment agreement to my lawyer. It was a relief to have the financial matters settled. The next day, Mark called me in a panic. Hello? Sarah. What do you want? We're legally strangers now. There's nothing to talk about. Wait, please don't hang up. Mark pleaded desperately. Curious about what happened, I decided to hear him out. So what is it? I was called into a meeting by the board when I got to the office today. Everyone knows about my affair, even though I tried to get ahead of Amy. Isn't that strange? Oh, I told them. You told the board? Yeah, I felt bad because they came to our wedding. But we divorced so quickly. Since you were busy with Amy, I thought I should explain why we split up. Just the board? You told everyone at my office? Yeah. When I told them my husband chose a vacation with someone else over our honeymoon, they were shocked. But how can I face everyone at work now? You don't have to hide anymore. Isn't that a good thing? Don't play games with me. You've ruined everything. I should be saying that to you. I wish I could get back the 5 years I wasted on someone like you. When I spoke up, he fell silent. Why don't you just be with Amy? If she cares about you so much, wouldn't she support you even if you quit your job? No, being with her only brings trouble. The only one who can support me is you, Sarah. Well, being with you only brings me trouble. If you want support, maybe you should think about how your actions affect others. Yeah, I regret it. So can we try again? No chance. Maybe it's time for you to reflect, start fresh, and try dating again. Oh, and maybe find a job first. Sarah, please don't leave me. You're the one who betrayed me first. You'll have to live with your regret. I ended the call abruptly. After that, Mark went back to his parents' house a few times to borrow money. But my father-in-law, who was falsely made out to be seriously ill and used as an excuse for Mark's affair, was furious. Eventually, he cut ties with Mark. Mark started feeling uncomfortable at work and ended up quitting. Job hunting didn't go well, and now he's barely making ends meet by working part-time at a convenience store. On the other hand, I moved into a new home with the alimony from Mark. Even though I changed the locks, it still felt strange living in a place my ex-husband knew about. Mark's parents helped me move. Maybe they saw it as a way to make up for their son's mistakes. I still keep in touch with them and have meals together occasionally. I may not get back the 5 years I spent with Mark, but I'm determined to find someone better next time. You're useless. You can't even handle the chores or take care of the kids, let alone pay the AL money. Kyle finally showed up at the hospital 3 weeks after my car accident, saying these mean things without caring about me lying there in the hospital bed. At first, I hoped Kyle came because he cared about me, but I was disappointed. I sighed deeply. Honestly, I had already been thinking about getting a divorce. I didn't expect Kyle to bring it up now, but I guess it's a good thing. It saved us both some trouble. Fine, I agreed quickly, which surprised Kyle. He didn't know I was already ahead of him. I wanted to tell him I knew what he was planning and was secretly laughing at him in my head. My name is Sarah. I'm a 40-year-old housewife living with my husband Kyle and our 7-year-old daughter Lisa. Kyle and I met during a group blind date and got married when I was 30. He was easy to talk to, and eventually I fell for him, and we started dating. Kyle was charming, the most handsome man at the table when we first met. When he showed interest in me, I felt flattered and proud. Kyle was incredibly romantic in our early days. He would surprise me with desserts and flowers at fancy restaurants for my birthdays, take me on trips for our anniversaries, and write heartfelt letters at just the right moments. I felt so lucky to have him and eagerly accepted his marriage proposal, imagining a life full of surprises and excitement even after marriage. But once we were married, things changed. Hey Sarah, my dinner isn't ready yet. I've been working all day, and you can't even have dinner prepared when I get back. You're so lazy. After we got married, Kyle started acting like he was the boss of the house and I was his servant. At first, I was shocked by how different he was. I thought he was just joking when we were dating. We used to laugh at each other's silly jokes. We imagined a sweet life where we'd call each other cute nicknames and stay lovey-dovey even after having kids. But he wasn't joking. He really treated me like a servant. At first, I laughed it off, thinking he was kidding. But then I realized he was serious. He actually saw me as his caretaker, and that scared me. After we got married, I had to quit my job, and we depended on the money Kyle earned. I was afraid that if I didn't do what he said, he might cut me off financially, so I felt trapped. Honestly, Kyle's income wasn't great. I made more money when I was working. Kyle only finished high school and kept changing jobs. He never stayed at a job for more than a year or two. It seemed like Kyle felt insecure about his background and took out his frustrations on me. I'm sorry I got delayed with some errands, I told him once. Don't make excuses, just hurry up and make it, Kyle replied, sitting down with a cold beer. This became a common scene, but each time I sighed and started cooking. My marriage made me miserable, but I managed to get by. The following year, our daughter Lisa was born, and my days became even more difficult. As expected, Kyle didn't help much with Lisa. However, he would spoil her by buying her any candy or toy she wanted. I tried to raise Lisa properly, so I scolded her when needed, which made her cling to Kyle even more. Lisa, you like Daddy, don't you? Kyle asked her once. Yeah, Daddy is cool. I love Daddy, Lisa replied. I knew it. I'm super dad, Kyle said, looking at me smugly. It was frustrating, but I couldn't help feeling glad that Lisa loved her father. I just sighed again. Despite spoiling her, Kyle never attended any of Lisa's kindergarten events like sports festivals or recitals. You know, there's a parent-child race at Lisa's sports festival. Could you participate? I asked him. Huh? Why me? You're free that day, you do it, he responded. But the sports festival could be a great time for us to bond as parents. It's on a holiday, so you won't have to work, I said to Kyle. Shut up. We're already close enough. Maybe you should work on your relationship with Lisa. She thinks you're mean, you know. You might want to fix that, Kyle said, laughing as he left for work. He called himself a super dad, yet he never showed up to school events. I worried that Kyle's habit of being easy on himself but hard on others might influence Lisa. He continued to leave all the housework and childcare to me and was lazy at home. Now Lisa is 5 years old and ready to start elementary school, but Kyle was still jumping from job to job. He had just quit his factory job last month and moved to a food and beverage company. I'll be working weekends at my new job since it's in the food industry, he said. Looks like we'll hardly see each other then, I replied. Can't be helped. It's work, he said. Honestly, I was relieved because I was tired of Kyle ordering me around on weekends. Now I wouldn't have to be nagged by him to clean the floor or serve meals quickly. But if Kyle was out on weekends, Lisa would be sad. It's better for kids to spend holidays with the whole family. I have work, so please let Lisa know, Kyle said. I couldn't really argue with Kyle since he was the one bringing in the money. Reluctantly, I went to tell Lisa. I'm sorry, but Daddy won't be able to go out with you on his day off, I said, frowning, thinking she would be upset. However, contrary to my expectations, Lisa seemed unconcerned. It's okay. If you're okay with it, then it's fine. You know he's not going to be here on all weekends, right? Daddy has been smelling strange lately, she said. A strange smell? I asked, puzzled. Lisa nodded and went back to her room. What on earth was she talking about? I've been so busy with housework and taking care of our child that I hadn't noticed much about Kyle lately. Our marriage was not like it used to be, and I tried to avoid being around Kyle to keep things calm. The strange smell Lisa mentioned might be from the factory, I thought. Factories often use special solvents, so it made sense that Kyle could come home with a weird smell. If that was the case, the smell would probably go away soon. Kids are really honest, which is what makes them so endearing. Despite what he said, Kyle started leaving the house early in the morning even on his days off, which was odd. He also left every weekday. If he was working weekends, he should have a day off during the week. He left without saying anything to me, so I couldn't tell if he was going to work or not. I became curious about what he was doing, leaving so early even on his days off. One day, I asked Kyle, "You seem to be going out every day off. What are you doing?" Kyle looked confused for a moment, then answered in an annoyed tone while scratching his head. "I'm working. I go to work voluntarily." "Really? But you should take care of yourself, or your body won't hold up," I replied. "Shut up. Don't complain about my job," Kyle snapped back. I didn't understand why he got so angry when he often complained about my housework and child rearing. I didn't believe what Kyle said. There's no way he, who usually avoids trouble, would go to work voluntarily on his days off. I knew this from watching him closely over the years. If he was that passionate about work, he would have stayed at his previous job longer. I'd also started paying attention to the strange smell that Lisa mentioned. Indeed, Kyle came home with a sweet, strong fragrance. This strange smell was not from the factory. Why hadn't I noticed this before? I blamed myself for being so naive and vowed not to make the same mistake again. From then on, I decided to watch Kyle more carefully, especially on weekdays when he said he was going to work. He seemed to wake up an hour earlier than usual and took extra care grooming himself. He appeared to be in a good mood on those days, which varied from week to week, sometimes on a Monday, sometimes on a Thursday. But it was clear that Kyle was happy on those days when he left the house. I went into his room to look for any clues. I felt like a detective searching a house. Since I always cleaned Kyle's room, I knew it well and didn't feel bad about snooping around. If Kyle had hidden anything, it would be in a place not easily seen. I searched carefully under the desk and bed. Finally, hidden in a candy tin in the closet, I found a bunch of letters. What were these? All the letters were from the same person named Patricia. They had been sent through the mail, the oldest letter from 4 months ago and the newest from yesterday. As I read the letters, I saw phrases like, I regretted when we broke up, but now I really love you, and I want to go back to the time when I was with you. It sounded like something a lovesick teenager would say. At first, I thought maybe Kyle's ex-girlfriend was sending these letters on her own, but then I read a line that worried me. I'm glad you like me again. I'm looking forward to our next date. This was from last week. It looked like Kyle was seeing this Patricia. Today he was definitely up to something. I took photos of the letters with my smartphone as evidence. I thought about taking the letters but didn't want to make Kyle suspicious. Even with these letters, I felt I didn't have enough proof. After thinking it over, I decided to hire a private investigator to check on Kyle. 3 weeks later, the investigator gave me the results. He brought photos of Kyle and Patricia close together in the park at night, and even a recording of them saying, "I love you," to each other. I accepted the facts calmly. With solid proof in hand, I went to the municipal office and came back with a divorce form. Now that I knew Kyle was cheating, I had no reason to stay with him. I planned to confront him with the divorce papers the next time something happened. I returned home and let out a deep sigh. I was acting resolved, but honestly, I was heartbroken. I was upset with myself for having married someone as careless as Kyle. I was thinking about resting a bit before making dinner when my phone rang. Hello? Yes, Sarah. Do you have time to talk? Yes. What's going on? I was surprised to get a call from my father. He usually doesn't call me. Actually, your mother and I were talking yesterday and we're thinking about transferring our assets to you soon. Huh? What happened? My father ran a company that sold imported goods to Japanese corporations. I was the daughter of a big company president, but I never told Kyle about this. I thought it would make me sound boastful, especially since Kyle jumped from one job to another. We're getting old and thinking about retiring. We thought about keeping the company going but didn't want to push it on to you, our only daughter, so we decided to step back. I see. I felt guilty about not taking over the company, but my parents respected my decision and had planned for the future. I was touched by their thoughtfulness. We're thinking of handing over our assets to you. Our total wealth is $17 million, but we're fine with just $3 million. We decided to give you the remaining $15 million. What? $15 million? I was shocked. That was more money than I could ever imagine earning in my lifetime. Yes, there will probably be inheritance tax, but you'll still have plenty left. You won't have to worry about living expenses for the rest of your life, Dad said. Thank you. I expressed my deepest gratitude to my father and mother and hung up. Soon $15 million would be coming my way. With that money, I wouldn't have any worries, even if I divorced Kyle. No offense to him, but he probably couldn't earn that much. I felt relieved and was in a daze for a while. I glanced at the clock. It was 6:00 p.m. I realized I needed to make dinner and checked the fridge, but there were no groceries left. I got ready to go shopping at the supermarket. My heart was light, but I also felt a sense of urgency that Kyle might come home soon. As I was hurrying across the last crosswalk to the supermarket, the light turned green. Watch out, someone yelled, but it was too late. My body was already in the air, and then I hit the ground hard. The sharp pain shot through my head, and without understanding what had happened, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was lying on a hospital bed. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes were my parents and Lisa. Sarah, thank goodness, Mom said. Lisa was crying next to me. I gently stroked her head. You were hit by a car and broke both legs. They say it will take 5 months to fully recover. 5 months? I felt dizzy thinking about being out of action for so long. From that day on, I was stuck in a wheelchair. Although the nurses took care of me, I felt frustrated and annoyed because I couldn't use my legs. During my stay in the hospital, my parents and friends visited me. My parents were taking care of Lisa now since Kyle was always at work. I thought that was better for her. I was glad everyone visited, but Kyle never came. I started to doubt his care, thinking, aren't we husband and wife? However, 1 week after I was hospitalized, Kyle finally showed up. Hey, feeling good? Kyle asked sarcastically. Yes, man, it's a mess at home without me, I replied lightly. Kyle always complained about my housework as soon as he spoke, showing no empathy. I sighed, thinking he would be at least a little worried about me. What can I do? I was in a car accident, I snapped back. Kyle looked at me with disdain and said, You're useless if you can't do housework or take care of the child. That's the worst, and you should pay alimony. He said such horrible things to his hospitalized wife. Initially, I had hoped Kyle came to visit out of concern, but he was still disappointing. I sighed deeply. Honestly, I had been thinking about getting a divorce myself. I hadn't expected Kyle to bring it up today, but it saved me the trouble of arguing. Sure, I said, and Kyle looked surprised when I agreed. Unfortunately, I know what you're up to, I wanted to say, laughing inside. Here's a divorce notice. I took out a filled-in divorce form from a bag my mother had brought and held it in front of Kyle's face. You already had this. Kyle was briefly confused, his eyes wide, but then he took the divorce notice from me and filled in his name and address right there. I felt relieved, knowing I wouldn't have to see Kyle's face ever again. I wanted to tell him the feeling was mutual, but I just watched him leave silently. Probably Kyle would remarry Patricia after the divorce. I didn't know what kind of woman Patricia was, but it was sad to think she was going to marry someone as controlling and unpleasant as Kyle. I felt a bit guilty about Lisa, but deciding to leave was something I had thought about for a long time. I promised myself I would take good care of Lisa. A month after Kyle left, my life was peaceful. The time without my husband nagging me felt like heaven. I was released from the hospital and started physical therapy. I decided to stay at my parents' house until my leg healed. My parents were angry at Kyle when they learned about the divorce, but they stopped pressing the issue when I told them I wanted to forget about him. Lisa didn't seem lonely even without her father around and was happily going to elementary school. In the end, Lisa also noticed Kyle's domineering behavior and probably didn't see him as a father anymore. I was convinced that divorcing Kyle was the right decision, but one afternoon, I got a call on my mobile phone. I ignored it when I saw Kyle's name, but the phone kept ringing nonstop. Eventually, I answered the call. Hey Sarah, when are you coming back? Kyle's words made no sense to me, and he sounded like he was about to start yelling. What do you mean, coming back? You married Patricia, didn't you? I replied. When I mentioned Patricia's name, Kyle sounded surprised and exclaimed, How do you know that? Did you think I didn't know you cheated? That's why I asked for alimony. Yes, that's right, but alimony and child support? I can't pay that. Why do I have to pay alimony anyway? You, who never did the housework, should be the one to pay. Kyle argued. I was shocked to hear Kyle's argument. I had asked for alimony and child support through a lawyer, but he hadn't paid yet. I knew Kyle didn't have a lot of money, but he should find a way to pay. Yet here he was, saying something ridiculous like I should be the one to pay alimony. I noticed your affair and gathered evidence. Did you see it from the lawyer? It seemed that Kyle had already seen the evidence from the detective agency. That would make things easier, but him calling me was ridiculous. I wanted a divorce even before I found out about the affair because you never helped with housework or childcare, and you complained all the time. I'm not your housekeeper, you know, but it's good you're married now. You have someone else to look after you. But here's the thing, Patricia can't do housework. Before we got married, she said, leave everything to me. But once we got married, her cooking is terrible and she doesn't clean. I would have been better off with you. Marry me again. After all, you don't have any money, right? Lisa liked me too, didn't she? Kyle said, which annoyed me. What are you talking about? You divorced me and remarried. You're her partner, not my responsibility. And sorry to say, Lisa doesn't like you. And I have money. Don't lie to me. There's no way you have money. You were a housewife. You can't live without me. I had no intentions of telling Kyle about the fortune I inherited from my parents, but faced with his aggressive attitude, I had no choice but to reveal it. My parents are CEOs. Recently, I inherited their assets. It's around $52 million in total, so I can live without working for the rest of my life. I could almost visualize Kyle gaping on the other end of the phone as he heard about this fortune. You're lying. There's no way you have such a huge amount of money. It's true. If you want, I can have my parents tell you. With that, Kyle finally seemed to believe my words and fell silent. Then he suddenly yelled, If it's true, why didn't you tell me? Well, I wanted to tell you, but I knew about your affair and I thought the worst of you, so I thought it didn't matter. At that point, I hadn't yet inherited the assets and there was no issue of property distribution. Kyle bit his lip in frustration. He probably never imagined I had such assets. He must be regretting that he divorced me. But I didn't want to suffer his terrible behavior anymore. Can I hang up now? Please pay the alimony properly, reflect on your actions, and never call me again. Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone. I immediately blocked Kyle's number so he couldn't call anymore. Mom, who were you talking to? Lisa walked into the room and asked curiously. Just a friend, I replied. But Lisa, do you want to go to the amusement park this weekend? Yes, Lisa smiled happily. Seeing her smile reminded me that her happiness was all that mattered to me. A few days later, I heard that Kyle had broken up with his new wife, Patricia. They argued because she wouldn't do housework, and Patricia ended up leaving him. Kyle, having been divorced twice in a short time, would probably find it hard to get married again. I hoped he would stay single for a while to prevent more people from getting hurt. After the divorce, Kyle lost his motivation and quit his job at the restaurant. He would probably find another job, but it might take him some time to get his life back on track. I felt a bit sorry for him, but his problems were his own doing. I blocked his calls so he couldn't ask me for money, and I avoided places where we used to go together. In my life, Kyle had virtually disappeared. Eventually, Kyle paid the alimony but ended up in debt. I don't know how he'll manage, but I hope he learns from his mistakes. I'm still living comfortably at my parents' house. They told us we could stay as long as we like. After my legs fully healed, I started part-time work at a local flower shop. Even though I don't need to work, I find it better to be active and leave the house. I work hard on weekdays and spend weekends having fun with Lisa and my parents. I feel more joy in life than before and want to keep living happily with the people I love. I cherish these happy moments, especially when I see Lisa's smile.